McDonald's UK has tested some truly strange items over the years. Quirky, short-lived, and easy to forget. Here are the standouts. The chicken legend. It didn't vanish because people stopped buying it. That's the strange part. McDonald's removed the chicken legend in 2022 with the kind of flat explanation that usually means there's more to this, but we're not getting into it. Officially, it was menu simplification. Unofficially, the story's messier. The legend was basically a chicken sandwich stretched into something that pretended to be grown up. A long, breadcrumbed chicken breast, shredded lettuce, and a sauce that did most of the heavy lifting. Cool mayo, spicy mayo, or the one fans still argue about, the BBQ. It looked more substantial than a mayo chicken, and less clumsy than a fillet. That was the whole trick. What defined it wasn't the chicken. It was the shape. That elongated bun changed station layouts, packaging routines, and even which boxes could be stacked during rush hour. Everything else about the sandwich was forgettable, but that shape caused work. There were rumors about supply issues. Some said the chicken breasts weren't consistent enough, others said the bun came from a supplier McDonald's was trying to phase out. None of it was confirmed, but the timing lined up a little too neatly with the company's push toward wraps and shorter assembly times. And then you get the digression you can't avoid. When they tried the McCrispy launch, the marketing practically erased the legend overnight. New color scheme, new tagline, new bread. McDonald's rarely runs two similar chicken builds at once. They pick one, and the other disappears quietly. The final batches of chicken legend boxes were spotted in back rooms for weeks afterward, stacked by the sauces, waiting to be used up. The McPizza. Most people assume the McPizza was an American experiment that never made it overseas. Wrong. Britain had it. Quietly, briefly, awkwardly. It arrived in the late 1980s when McDonald's wanted to prove it could be more than burgers and fries. A pizza oven was squeezed into the back of select branches, mostly in city centers. The idea sounded clever. Bring in families who wanted something different. What they didn't plan for was how long a pizza actually takes to cook. 8, sometimes 10 minutes, an eternity in fast food time. Customers stood waiting, watching other orders fly past, while the McPizza slowly browned in a tiny convection oven. The toppings were basic: cheese and tomato, pepperoni, or ham and pineapple. But the novelty was the point. A McDonald's pizza. It felt like a dare more than a meal. The marketing barely landed. The UK never got a big campaign, just a few local ads hinting at something new from the Golden Arches. Staff hated it. The ovens took up space, the queues grew, and the whole rhythm of McDonald's, the precision timing, the efficiency, broke down completely. By 1991, the experiment was over. No announcement, no farewell, just gone. The ovens disappeared as quietly as they'd arrived, but people who were around then still talk about it like an urban myth. Didn't McDonald's do pizza once? Yes, and it made no sense. It wasn't bad, it wasn't great, it was just wrong for the setting. McDonald's kitchens were built for speed, not patience. And in the UK, patience isn't something you test when people are hungry. The McPizza was the moment McDonald's learned what it wasn't, a restaurant you wait for. The McHot Dog. The McHot Dog wasn't a mistake, it was a misunderstanding. McDonald's genuinely thought Britain wanted hot dogs. We didn't. We wanted McDonald's. It first appeared in the 1990s, quietly, no fanfare. A long bun, a single frankfurter, a squiggle of mustard and ketchup. That was it. No onions, no cheese, no flair, just a basic sausage in bread. The problem wasn't that it tasted bad. It just didn't fit. McDonald's was built around the bite-sized idea of burgers and chips, and the McHot Dog looked like it had wandered in from a fairground stall. There were reports at the time that some franchisees hated selling it. The smell lingered, the buns went stale, and it slowed everything down. Customers were confused too. It felt almost un-British. Hot dogs were something you ate on bonfire night, not a Tuesday lunch. McDonald's gave it another go during the London 2012 Olympics, betting on nostalgia and novelty. They called it the limited edition McHot Dog, which made it sound collectible. It wasn't. Reviews were mixed, to put it kindly. People bought it once, out of curiosity, and never again. Here's the funny part. McDonald's actually has a rule internally that hot dogs should never be on the core menu. Ray Kroc himself, the chain's legendary founder, called them a messy product that risks the brand's reputation. And yet, the UK tried anyway, twice. In hindsight, it made sense on paper. Simple, fast, cheap. But in Britain, fast already meant burger. The McHot Dog felt like watching your favorite band cover a song they didn't like. Technically fine, spiritually wrong. Then it vanished, leaving behind little more than a handful of confused press photos and a few people asking, "Did I dream that?" The Strawberry Cheesecake McFlurry. Why did this one taste so much better than it had any right to? It shouldn't have worked. Strawberry sauce, biscuit crumbs, and tiny chunks of what barely counted as cheesecake, all mixed into soft serve that melted faster than you could eat it. Yet somehow, it did. The Strawberry Cheesecake McFlurry hit UK menus in the early 2000s, around the time McDonald's was trying to prove it could be more premium. It wasn't a permanent item, it floated in and out like a summer guest, here for a few months, gone without warning. Every reappearance triggered the same reaction, excitement, followed by disappointment when it vanished again. It stood out because it didn't taste like typical McDonald's. There was no chocolate, no toffee, no caramel overload, just a sweet and tangy balance that actually felt posh. It was the dessert equivalent of thinking you were at a fancy cafe, then realizing you were sitting under a plastic arch surrounded by Happy Meals. What most people didn't know was that the cheesecake part wasn't really cheesecake at all. It was biscuit crumble and a creamy flavor base blended in. A shortcut, but a convincing one. McDonald's rarely used real dairy desserts in the UK then. Everything was designed to survive storage, transport, and a machine that did half the work for you. Still, it became the unofficial best McFlurry on fan polls for years. Even now, whenever a limited edition McFlurry comes out, someone online mentions it. It's nostalgia disguised as dessert. You can almost hear people saying, they should bring that one back. It was over the top and artificial, sure, but it's also proof that sometimes McDonald's gets weird, and instead of failing, they stumble into something that feels almost like comfort food. The McSalad Shaker. It looked more like a science experiment than lunch. The McSalad Shaker was McDonald's answer to the growing obsession with healthy eating in the early 2000s. Essentially, a salad stuffed into a tall, transparent cup. The idea was simple. Pour in dressing, screw on the lid, and shake it like a milkshake. Compared to the Big Mac, it felt like eating from another planet. Launched in the UK around 2003, it came in a few variations: chicken Caesar, chef salad, and garden. Each was layered neatly, lettuce on top, protein in the middle, dressing packet wedged in at the side. It was efficient in theory. You could walk out of McDonald's holding a salad in one hand and your drink in the other. The trouble started when people actually tried to eat it. The shaker design sounded clever, but it didn't work the way they hoped. The lid often leaked, the dressing clumped at the bottom, and unless you'd brought your own fork, you had to fish out soggy lettuce with your fingers. For a brand built on convenience, it somehow made eating more complicated. McDonald's pushed it as a lifestyle thing. Bright adverts, clean fonts, smiling models shaking their lunch on the go. It felt like they were copying Pret rather than being McDonald's. By 2005, it was quietly phased out and replaced with standard salad bowls that didn't require physics to assemble. Here's the twist, though. It wasn't a total failure. It marked the first real shift in how McDonald's approached health in the UK. The shaker walked so the grilled wraps and fruit bags could run. Still, it's funny to think there was once a time when people stood in McDonald's, shaking their lunch like a protein drink. The McLam Deluxe people tend to lump it in with all the other odd McDonald's experiments. But the McLam Deluxe actually made sense, at least on paper. It launched in the UK in the mid-1990s, a time when McDonald's was trying to sound more British. The brief was simple. Take something recognizably local and give it the fast food treatment. Lamb was chosen because it felt sophisticated, traditional, even a bit posh compared to beef. Except that's where things started to wobble. The burger itself wasn't bad, just unexpected. A thick lamb patty, mint yogurt sauce, lettuce, tomato, all in a sesame bun. It looked like a Sunday roast compressed into a sandwich. The meat was seasoned heavily to hide the stronger lamb flavor, but that only made it taste slightly processed. Not quite kebab, not quite shepherd's pie. And for customers used to Big Macs or Filet-O-Fish, the flavor landed somewhere between confusing and that's interesting. What McDonald's underestimated was that lamb, while British, wasn't exactly an everyday thing. It was expensive, divisive, and had a reputation for being grown-up food. Parents might order it once out of curiosity, but kids, the real repeat customers, didn't want mint sauce anywhere near their meal. The McLam Deluxe vanished within months. Some outlets tried tweaking it with less sauce or different seasoning, but the damage was done. You can't sell nostalgia for a flavor people never grew up with. McDonald's quietly shifted its local menu focus to safer options like wraps and breakfast items instead. Still, it's one of the few times the company genuinely tried to make something British for Britain, not just an imported idea with new packaging. The McLam Deluxe wasn't a failure of taste, it was a failure of timing. Too fancy for fast food, too fast for fine dining. The mac and cheese triangles. You'd swear these came from Greggs, not McDonald's. They showed up quietly in the UK around 2015, part of a short-lived wave of premium sides that McDonald's tested between festive menu cycles. 3 golden triangles of fried macaroni and cheese, served with a tiny pot of tomato dip that was never quite enough. It wasn't a meal, it was more like something you grabbed when you couldn't commit to fries again. They didn't really fit the McDonald's mold. The brand had spent decades training everyone to expect straight lines, burgers, nuggets, fries, but these came in uneven, crispy chunks that looked almost homemade. The inside wasn't gourmet by any stretch. It was thick, molten pasta glued together with cheddar sauce. Still, there was something addictive about them. Maybe it was the crunch. Maybe it was that they felt like they shouldn't exist on the same menu as a Filet-O-Fish. What made them strange wasn't the flavor. It was the timing. Britain already loved cheese. Cheese bites, mozzarella dippers, cheese melts, they'd all been done. But McDonald's packaging these as triangles gave them a weird sense of identity, like they were trying to start a new comfort food trend nobody asked for. They'd appear for a few weeks, disappear for months, then reappear slightly renamed. Cheesy triangles, cheese melt dippers, even festive cheese melt dippers with a cranberry dip that divided opinions straight down the middle. They never lasted long enough to become a favorite, but they're one of those rare items that summed McDonald's up perfectly. Part innovation, part confusion. Not quite classy, not quite junk food, but right in that middle ground that keeps people curious. And somehow, for something so simple, they were better than they had any right to be. The McCurry Dippers. Why did McDonald's ever try curry? It's a question that doesn't get asked enough because it actually makes perfect sense. Britain's love of curry is practically a national trait. So when the McCurry Dippers appeared in the mid-2000s, it felt like McDonald's trying to blend that everyday British comfort with its own fast food identity. Small, battered chicken pieces served with a curry dipping sauce. Simple, almost too simple. The curry itself wasn't what you'd get from a takeaway. It was more of a cross between chip shop curry sauce and something vaguely tikka-inspired. Sweet, mild, and just spicy enough that parents didn't complain. It came in those tiny dipping pots that always felt like they ran out halfway through the meal. Some people adored them, others thought they tasted like airport food pretending to be Indian. Both were right in a way. They actually made multiple returns. First as McCurry Dippers, then as part of Great Tastes of the World, and later under names like Chicken Curry Melt or Indian Chicken McBites. Each rebrand was basically the same concept. Give customers a hint of curry without committing to a full-on spicy menu. It was the safe kind of exotic. What's interesting is how they showed McDonald's figuring out where British tastes were headed. The UK had long been eating curry, but McDonald's didn't want to risk anything too strong or authentic. So they gave us this middle ground version, creamy, orange, completely inoffensive. They vanished again after a few runs, replaced by spicier international items years later. But if you were around when they launched, you'll remember the smell. That warm, sweet curry scent that somehow lingered longer than the fries. McDonald's never nailed curry, but they weren't wrong to try. It was one of their most British mistakes. The Big Breakfast. People forget that McDonald's didn't just do breakfast. For a while, it tried to replace the fry-up entirely. The Big Breakfast wasn't subtle. Scrambled eggs, a sausage patty, a hash brown, and a toasted muffin crammed into one tray, like someone had taken a full English, flattened it, and served it in sections. It showed up in the early 1990s and immediately felt like it had been designed by someone who'd watched a British breakfast from a distance and copied the shapes, not the logic. The eggs were the strangest part. They weren't fried, they weren't poached, they were this fluffy, uniform block that somehow held its shape even after you cut into it. The sausage patty came straight from the McMuffin playbook, the hash brown was the same one everyone loved, and the muffin felt like the only component that behaved normally. It was all familiar, but arranged in a way that made your brain hesitate for half a second, like seeing a friend wearing the wrong glasses. People bought it for convenience. Lorry drivers, early office workers, students nursing hangovers, the crowd who didn't want cutlery, just calories. And the funny thing is, it actually filled a gap. Britain had loads of cafes doing fry-ups, but almost none doing them at the exact speed McDonald's could move. For about 20 years, the Big Breakfast just quietly existed. Never flashy, never advertised much, but always there in the corner of the menu like a dependable backup plan. Its downfall wasn't taste, it was logistics. By 2015, McDonald's was tightening the breakfast window, simplifying prep lines and pushing wraps and bagels that were easier to assemble. The Big Breakfast took too long. Too many components, too many trays, too many ways for the eggs to go wrong if someone rushed, so it disappeared without ceremony. Some branches kept the equipment for a while, hoping it might return. It didn't. The only thing left now is the odd photo online. The plastic tray, the neat layout, the scrambled eggs that never quite made sense. The McRib. No other McDonald's item has had such a cult following or such a confusing existence as the McRib. Every time it vanished, people acted like it had been outlawed. Then it would come back for a few weeks, and suddenly everyone remembered why it disappeared in the first place. The McRib first hit British menus in the early 1980s. A barbecue sauce-covered pork patty molded to look like ribs but with no bones in sight. It was smoky, sticky, and awkward to eat, especially if you were trying to hold it one-handed in the car. The bread was softer than the usual McDonald's bun, the sauce stronger, the texture strange, somewhere between sausage meat and school canteen mystery meat. And yet, people loved it. The thing about the McRib is that it was engineered, not cooked. McDonald's scientists created it so pork trimmings could be reshaped into something that resembled ribs. It sounds grim, but it worked, until sales dipped and the chain quietly pulled it. Then came the reruns, 1994, 2008, 2015, 2021. Each farewell tour came with cues like it was a rock concert. In Britain, it never quite reached the fever pitch it did in America, but the pattern was the same: hype, disappearance, nostalgia. What's funny is that nobody claims it was delicious. It was just different. The texture was odd, the sauce messy, and you couldn't eat it neatly in public. Yet for some reason, it felt iconic. Maybe because it broke the McDonald's mold. For a company built on predictability, the McRib was unpredictable, and that made it feel special. It wasn't a burger, it wasn't ribs, it was something weirdly in between, and somehow that was enough.